A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I had been laid off from a job at a factory. I found a newspaper ad for what looked to be a promising career for a strapping young man such as myself. I went to an interview. I wore a shirt and tie. 4 hours later, I found myself walking out to the car in the parking lot, thinking to myself, did I just take a job selling knives? Now you have to keep in mind that at the time I was 285 pounds and I wore a full-length black leather trench coat. People used to refer to me as either Meatloaf or the Trench Coat Mafia. As it turns out, I had some things in common with the famous salesman from the play Death of a Salesman. His name was Willy Loman. For those of you who weren't familiar with the play, the main character is prone to delusion, fantasy, and denial of reality. Now, my story doesn't end as badly as his, obviously. I'm still here today. But it was my tendency towards overexcitement that reeled me into this, what I thought would be a lucrative opportunity. I heard the sales trainer regaling us with tales about kitchen cutlery tycoons who had made their fortune beginning as mere mortals like myself. I could visualize myself standing on stage, brandishing a petite chef knife and soaking in applause to fit a rock star. Our 3 days of unpaid sales training were intense. They crammed us into a hot room and instructed us to respond to commands as if we were trained SEALs. For example, if the instructor were to throw out his arms like this, everyone in the room in unison was expected to yell, "Wow!" We were told about fantastic bonuses and contests where we would have the opportunity to make even more money than they told us we were going to make in the interview. They kept this part secret, or so they said, because they saved the good stuff for the people on the inside. The first day, we didn't take a single cigarette break for 6 hours. I don't smoke anymore, but I did back then, and that was important to me. I remember some of us standing outside huffing and puffing, and we're talking about how we're going to just get rich making all this money on selling knives. And we were told to write down the names of 200 or more people that we knew. We were supposed to start with people in our families, people, our friends, coworkers, pretty much anybody that had ever walked within 3 feet of us. I'm sitting here thinking of, like, wow, I wonder if this is like a memory exercise, or wonder what all these names are for. And then the sales trainer asked us to start writing down their phone numbers, and I'm thinking, oh, they're not going to ask us to call these people, are they? So to make a long story short, here's how one of these typical phone conversations went. I'll pick a volunteer from the audience. I'll use Lee, and don't worry, you don't have to actually do anything except just sit there and be grateful that you never actually received one of these phone calls and never will. All right, so I might say, "Hi, Lee. I'm really excited to talk to you right now. God, I wanted to say how grateful I am, and just to know you, and I just want to see how you're doing." And by this point, Lee's probably sitting there thinking, "Okay, well, this is just what is he getting at here?" And this might be, keep in mind, some of the times people I hadn't even talked to for several years and didn't even really know that well back then. But this is how we were trained to do it, to inject this artificial excitement into pretty much every conversation. So then what would happen is the conversation would become forced and awkward, sometimes inside of 10 seconds. And I could tell that they really just wanted to get off the phone. So at that point, my energy would start to diminish a little bit, and that's when I'd start my sales pitch. I'd say, "Oh, so by the way, Lee, I just wanted to tell you, I got this really awesome job, just incredible, amazing job, where I get to tell people about these really cool products. You know what, just now that I think of it, would you mind if I came over to your house and showed you my product line? How about 2 o'clock tomorrow or 4 o'clock Friday? Would that work for you?" And usually the responses got really interesting after this point. Some people would be like, okay, or someone would be, yeah. But sometimes I actually got the appointment, believe it or not. Sometimes they actually answered the door when I showed up. Sometimes they even bought knives. Believe it or not, I don't know how. Don't ask me how, but somehow I managed to sell about $2,000 worth of kitchen knives over 3 months. But I can't leave out the most important, most fun part of this process, asking for referrals. Now, keep in mind, I'd be sitting at somebody's kitchen table after concluding a very high-pressure, forced sales pitch with a prospectus and flip book and all, and someone who hadn't really wanted to say yes in the first place for the most part, they just wanted to get me off the phone. My next task was to ask them for the names of 5 to 10 people that they knew, write them down with their phone numbers on a piece of paper on the spot, and I was supposed to ask them to call those people on the spot to tell them that I would be coming over to do my presentation for them. Now, by this point, they were more eager than anything to pretty much get this over with, get me out of their house, and never talk to me again. But as if the demo hadn't been painful enough, I was supposed to ask them to call their friends and act like these people should be happy to hear that Meatloaf was about to knock on their door and try to sell them some knives. Now, let's just say that there were some moments that I wished I was dead during this process. That's where I could kind of connect myself to Willie Loman here. So, for example, ask me sometime to tell you about the time I did a demo for people during a kid's birthday party. What I learned from the experience is that sometimes when an idea sounds really good, it's good to sleep on it for a little while and maybe bounce it off a couple of people first. Find out about the realities of this idea before getting drawn into it. But I don't regret it for a second because it has given me an endless supply of speech material. Mr. Toastmaster.